Up next, we have Rebecca Bamford, assistant professor of physical philosophy, and her presentation is titled Punctuation.
Okay, thank you. How are you all doing? Good? Good. When I was asked to give this presentation, I thought to myself, I want to talk about something that's of interest to students. And then I started to ask myself, what do I most commonly find myself saying to students? And in the same vein as Professor Kavanagh, I say something that brings students down. I wanted to start by apologising for that. What I say, usually, especially with regard to student writing, has to do with grammar. Any students of mine in the audience who've had comments about... There's some hands going up. Yeah. Again, I'm sorry about this, but there is a reason for it. Why should we care about punctuation? Why is that something that should even be interesting to us? So I thought I better have a good answer for you people. And hopefully I have one. So I thought talking about everything to do with punctuation would be a little ambitious. So I'm just going to talk about one item of punctuation, that is the em dash. Occasionally known as mutton, if you didn't know that already. The em dash is a long dash, just like the one in this first sentence here. And what it does is it signifies a longer pause than a comma does or than parentheses do. Why should we care about the em dash? Well, if you take the example of these two sentences, you should notice one critical difference. In the first one, you'll see it's punctuated by a colon. In the second sentence, you'll see it's punctuated by the em dash. So this is from Mark Twain's novel, Pudd'nhead Wilson. And Mark Twain chose to use the second sentence. He chose to use it because the em dash does something quite unusual. It increases the effective power of sentences. But rather than Mark Twain, I have two examples that I wanted to give you to try to convince you that this is the case. And the first one is the American poet Emily Dickinson, who lived just up the road in Amherst, Massachusetts. And Dickinson's work was consistently misedited to remove the em dashes with which she peppered her poetry. And so if you see the example on the right, sorry, the example on the left, I knew I was going to get confused. You'll see that the em dashes are missing from this short poem about truth. In the example on the right, you'll see that the em dashes are present. So listen to the difference just in the first line. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. This is the one that Dickinson actually wrote. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. That pause makes a difference. We feel with the poet, right? One more example. And this is the philosopher I happen to specialize in. My plug for the day, I have 4 books forthcoming on Nietzsche's philosophy, including the first one written entirely on one of his books, Dawn, from which this aphorism is taken. Nietzsche, like Dickinson, thought the em dash was important, right? He called it something quite unique. He called it a Gedankenstrich, so a stroke of thought. So when he's writing using the em dash, unless we're paying attention to how he's punctuating his aphorisms, we'll miss something really unique about his philosophy. The em dash, this stroke of thought, is a space in the text that allows room for readers like us to actually think in dialogue with the philosopher. Instead of this constant impression we sometimes get of philosophers talking at you. Again, students in the audience of mine, I'm sorry about this. You may have experienced that. Instead of that, in Nietzsche's writing, the em dash opens up this space in which we pause and think with him. So again, I'll just read a little bit of this. He says, the words get in the way. Wherever primitive humans set forth a word, they thought they had made a discovery. But in truth, how the situation was. They had hit on a problem, and in presuming to have solved it, they had created an impediment to its solution. These days,
With every act of knowing, one has to stumble over perpetually petrified words, and in the process, one is more likely to fracture a leg than a word. So, to conclude, the words might get in the way, but I hope the punctuation doesn't. And I hope that thinking about something like the M dash as creating a space for your thought suggests that punctuation can be just a little bit more interesting than we might have first thought. Thank you.